All right, so this is the fresh 2022 school year edition of the desk for the bedroom project. So before we get underway in Maya, I just want to point out a few structural specifics on this so that they're clear from the beginning. So for starters, the top of this, unlike with our nightstand where it was nice and easy to make it onto the very top of our nightstand naturally, a little bit more difficult now, so that will be a separate piece. Additionally, for each of these legs, I'm going to make those as separate pieces as well. But I do want to point out, and it's actually much easier to see in this drawing, but so here is where our little cabinet section is. The cabinet section fits itself into the middle of these legs, so it is not flush with the side of these legs. It's in the middle. Same thing with this end piece over here on the desk. You can see here's our drawer piece. This is a little farther down, but also it is inset at the middle of these legs. So I'm going to start by making my legs. So I'm going to take a cube, and before I do anything else to the cube, I want my subdivision's width to be 2, subdivision's depth to be 2, and that is going to give me these bisecting lines. I'm going to make these nice and tall. Let me move this up and off the grid. Okay, very nice. And now, what I'm going to do is duplicate this leg, move it back, and I'm going to move my pivot point to the top back for this one, and for my front one, I'll move it to the top front. The pivot points, I mean. And so now I'll be able to snap this onto my cabinet piece, which I'm going to make out of another cube. And so for this, I'm just going to lengthen it out. Here, I'm going to scale this up like that, like that. Scale it up. It's a little too long. Again, we're just eyeballing this. You don't need to get it super specific, but I am volumetrically trying to get it to match up with this. You totally could measure it out, but I'm not gonna. I think this is fine. Okay, we're gonna call that fine. I also want to look from the side view for the length of the legs. I think this is a little too tall. Okay, cool. We'll give that a go. So now with my move tool, I'm going to snap the front leg on in the middle, the back leg on in the middle. Great. Same concept. I'm going to just duplicate this and snap it to the other side. Yay. Duplicate and snap to the other side. So now I got 5 rectangles all snapped together. Rectangular prisms. Okay, so let's remind ourselves of the shape that we are making. So for this, there is basically the door goes to either side's leg. So the door is about the entire width of this shape. And then height-wise, it's about equivalent width of the leg from the top and the bottom for the door. So going back to here, I need edges that are just inside from the leg and vertically about the same. So in order to make it easy to see that, I want to turn on my wireframe on shaded view. And that's going to show me the wireframe edges from my other legs, or from the legs objects, I should say. And that way, when I go to Insert Edge Loop Tool and Options, I want to use the multiple edge loops with equal multiplier set to 2. And the reason why I want to do that is when I split this, so I'll get the two newly added edge loops evenly spaced from one another, switch to the scale tool, and then I can spread those apart and get it so they're just inside from the dark blue lines that are from the leg. You don't want to have them perfectly overlapping. You'll get faces flickering on one another. Just try and get it so they're just barely on the inside of these blue edges. So that's totally fine with me. Those are good. Now, same thing. We're going to go insert edge loop tool again. Same concept, except we're going to split this horizontally and then scale them away from each other until there. All right, so now this face right here can represent our door space. So just like with the drawers that we added on the nightstand, we are going to need to start by creating our offset edges so that we can extrude in some gaps. So I'm going to just extrude this. And very baby offset. So you can hold down Control and scroll the word offset, or you can just type in something very small like 0.03. So it's very small. I'm going to then hold down Shift and press the period key once to grow my selection. Hold down Control to deselect the big face. Now I just have those faces selected. Extrude in those little gaps that I made. Don't need to go back too far. And now, so let me go into object mode and turn this off. Turn off my wireframe on shaded. Now you can see how that looks. So those are my gaps. Grab this face here. We're going to extrude. This time much bigger offset. And then one more. This extrude is just to create the offset. I extrude one more time and then use the blue arrow. And we'll push this in slightly. And that will create the door. Ta-da! Okay. So, oh, I forgot to put the handle on this in my last video. It's fine. But, so, going on from here, like I said, the top part is going to be added separately. So now I need to create this area where the drawer goes. Now, the good news is that I can use this face right here. How can I use it? I can extrude it. Pull this over like this. Now also, some of you might be thinking, this is a little thicker than I have it as it is. So yes, I will need to, once I've extruded this out enough, grab this face on the bottom, move tool, and basically the bottom of the drawer lines up with the top or the little inset gap on this. If you look in this picture, see how the bottom of the drawer lines up with the top of this line here where the inset is. So that was my guide on this. So this is where we're at so far. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my leg here again and duplicate it and snap it to my other side. And the same thing for the back leg. So now I have all 6 of my legs attached in the right spots. Cool. Now one thing I want to point out about the face that hangs down here is you can see it is lower than our drawer. So we need to consider that. And it's also still inset, right? So here is what we're going to do. First, so I need to put my wireframe on shaded mode back on again because I'm going to be working with these edges here. So I need to make sure I can see them. I'm going to go to Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop, Options. Make sure my tool is reset here. And I'm going to add one edge just on the inside of these blue lines here. One just on the outside of the blue lines. And then oh, okay, so I have these two here vertically. Horizontally, I just need a small one across the bottom. And honestly, this goes basically right up against the very top of the desk. So I don't want to have an edge loop up there too far down from the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a very, very tiny edge loop up here. And the reason why I'm adding an edge loop is because if I didn't, when I extrude my gaps in, I would have flickering faces that would overlap. So I need to have at least some level of thickness up here at the top so that that doesn't happen. So again, you can see my edge for this is very close to the top. And then come down to the bottom. This one should be a little bigger. It should be rightfully about the thickness of the top of the table. Now, one thing that this does is that it creates this edge flow where this goes all the way around the object again after it follows this loop that we've altered from earlier that we used for making the door. So to work cleanly, which is part of how I've changed this assignment this year, I'm going to delete this edge all the way around to this edge. So I just selected one. So again, I'm going to deselect. I'm going to select this one. Shift double click around to this one. So it's going to get all of these in a row. We're going to delete them the right way using Edit Mesh, Delete Edge Vertex. Multi-cut tool. And then I'm just going to connect these at this little triangle here. And that will save me several faces, and it'll clean up the flow of my geometry on this, so it'll look a little bit nicer. Okay, so going back over to here, going into my face mode, now I can select this face that I've created on the outside here and just extrude this down for a little bit of extra space. And so now we have that little extra that's hanging down, and I've cut in the space for my drawer. So now I'm going to extrude in my drawer. Do that the exact same way. Oh, I forgot an edge loop over here. Silly me. Back to insert edge loop. So I need to have an edge right up against this blue line here from the other leg. So I need to get it close but not overlapping. There we go. Okay, now I have a face for my drawer. So I select this big face here, extrude, and hold Control. The offset very, very slightly. Shift and period key to grow the selection. Deselect the big one. Now I have these on the outside. Extrude and push them back. You can even still see these because of how minimal the thing. It's not flickering, I guess, which is fine. So that's adding the drawer. Now, now we need to make some knobs. I'll put the top on in a second. I'll put the top of the desk on in a second. But first I'm going to make my knobs. So the same way, just grab the sphere, you rotate it 90 degrees on the X. And again, I'm going to go ahead and scale this bad boy to be flatter. So now I'm going to select these faces here, make a very slight extrude, or I make an extrude move tool actually to push them out. Then while I still have them selected, scale tool and flatten them. Cool. Then I'll take these edges here, select them, mesh display soft. And for this object, I'm going to put the pivot point on the end. Okay. So now I need to make the edges that will give me a point on here to stick these to. So back to Insert Edge Loop tool. Options. Multiple edge loops. This time I'm going to set multiple edge loops to 1, so that way they perfectly bisect my edges. And so horizontally, I want to bisect this face here. Vertically, I want to bisect this face here. Horizontally, I want to bisect this face here. And vertically, I want to bisect this face. So now I have enough added where I can grab this move tool. I'm going to snap it to the center of my drawer here. It is way too big. Scale it down significantly. That looks good. Duplicate this again, move tool, and again snap it onto here. Okay, these are both a little too small. Let me scale these up a little bit. Okay, cool. And now I want to get rid of those edges because these are extraneous. So again, I'm going to double click, shift double click. And again, you want to make sure your delete edge vertex, command delete is the keyboard shortcut. So get that one and this one, command delete. Those will stay where they're at, but now we don't have the extra faces. And now finally, I need to fit the top of this on to the desk. I need to put the very top desktop on the desk. So the easiest way to do this, believe it or not, is with a brand new cube. And what I'm going to do is first I want to get the height of this to be the height that I want this to be. So that looks about right. I'm going to go into my edge selection mode. Whoops. For this part, the part that I'm going to make the desktop. So I'm going to put this in edge mode. And what I'm going to do is for each of these edges, I'm going to move the pivot point to the bottom. And then I'm going to move the pivot point to the corner. Do for this edge. Pivot point to the bottom. And then hold V, snap it to the corner over here. Oh, whoops. I did not move my pivot point on this one, so it'd be the middle of the edge. And let's throw it on there. All right, one more edge. Grab this edge, move the pivot point to the bottom of the edge, snap it to here. And there you have it. Now it fits onto the top of here perfectly. Except the pivot point's in a weird spot, so we're going to go reset the pivot point, modify center pivot. And now I can scale this from the center, keep it in proportion, except it's going to be longer than it is out in front. So let me scale this a slight bit more, scale in the width a little bit, and there you go. Boom, boom, boom. There is your completed desk. So then I'll just go ahead, mesh, combine. I promise I won't go nitpick anyone on this, but if they're trying to go do this themselves, you totally can delete these edges. They are no longer necessary. Whoops. If you were so inclined. Wonder how many of this is going to save me. So right now I have 100 or 1051 faces. So if I delete these, that save me 50 faces. I mean, that's not nothing, but I don't know, not a ton. And then if I wanted to be extra cleanly, I could tie off a whole bunch of these edges too that I don't really need anymore, but that is just like way too much work for what I'm asking. So once you get it all combined and it looks good, you're all done. All right. Thanks for watching, folks.